Dear students, welcome to the EPG Pathshala. My name is Dr. Mahesh Kalra and I am the curator of Numismatics at the Asiatic Society of Mumbai. Today I am going to cover the topic of Indo-European coinages and currency notes under the topic of Indian numismatics. So if we go to the understanding of Indo-European coinages, we'll first understand what are our learning objectives. The main aim of this module is to bring out the different kind of currencies that were issued by European powers, with the exception of the English from the 16th century to the 19th centuries. And from thence on, we are trying to look at the objectives of each European power on issuing these currencies and the impact of the same. Finally, we'll be trying to chart the journey of each European power as it struggled to survive against its European rivals as well as Indian rivals. So first we are going to cover the Europeans and why did they come to India. Europe had always a draw for India right from the most ancient period. However, this interest was reviewed in the 15th century by a number of European powers. Many of them came to India and established colonies on the settlements called the Indo-European settlements, and their coinages have thus been termed as Indo-European coinages. In this presentation, we are going to cover most of the Indo-European powers with the exception of the English. So what are the features of an Indo-European currency? First of all, these were the currencies which were issued first in base metal, that is copper, lead and nickel, basically to serve the purpose of local trade and exchange between the soldiers and the locals of the area. The next stage of the European coinages was gold and silver. These coins were issued basically for trade purposes. Most of the base metal coinages had European symbols, emblems and national marks. Most of the pure metal coins were either local or Mughal prototypes. Here we have to take the exception of the Indo-Portuguese coins, which never took the local Indian route and always issued their own coins with European and Christian heraldry. So what do we look at when we look at the Indo-Portuguese coinages? We are first going to look at how the power came into existence. Portugal began exploring the Indian Ocean in 1480s and sent out expeditions, one headed by Vasco da Gama, which landed at Calicut in 1498. Exact date was May 1498, and from then onwards the Portuguese kept growing till it established and captured Goa in 1510, Daman in 1531, Basim in 1531 and Diu in 1535. Portuguese were very quick to establish mints. The first mint was probably established at Cochin somewhere in 1503. Then it was Goa 1510, followed by Basin in 1611, Daman in 1611 itself, Chaul and Diu, both in the next half of the 17th century. However, Basin and Daman Chaul mints were closed in 1739 and 40 under the pressure of the Marathas. So we see that these were limited time period that we are looking at. The next two mints, Diu and Goa, survived much into the 19th century when they were closed down under the pressure of the British and hence couldn't issue coinages beyond 1869. So what are the features of the Indo-Portuguese coinages? First of all, they had Christian heraldry. Also, they had mint marks. These were Roman letters like CO, which stood for Cochin, GA, which stood for Goa, DO, which stood for Diu, and finally B or BC, which stood for Basim or Basim and Chaul. These were basically embossed in the mint design and were thus imprinted on each coin, thus giving us a clue on where these coins were actually issued. We see two of these in the slide, one having the CO emblem and the other having GA. Both of these were issued in Cochin and Goa respectively. The first gold coinage of the Indo-Portuguese was issued very early under the period of Dom Manuel, somewhere around 1495, and these again had the cross as the main emblem and a kind of armillary spear on the reverse. Interestingly, these coins were issued much before the Mughals arrived in India in 1526. So that makes the Portuguese the first colonial power to actually issue their own coinages in the Indian subcontinent. So the Portuguese, apart from copper, also issued gold and silver coins. The gold coins were called as cruzados because of the cross on it, or sometimes as the manual or after the ruler, whoever issued the coin. So the coins of Manuel the first were called as manuals, and then there were half units of the same called as mio manual. Mio means half in Portuguese. Similarly, there was a silver unit called as the espera, and then there was a half espera called as the mio espera. Mia was encrowned on the unit itself, indicating that it was the half unit. And these coins, basically the first series was continued till 1519, when they were suspended in favor of a new series, which was again issued in 1549. These were again very interesting. They had the image of Saint Thomas, who was the first disciple of Christ to come to India, and hence he was adopted by the Portuguese as the patron saint for the Indian colonies. Interestingly, one of the coins by Juas III has the legend India tibi cessit, which means India has yielded to you, indicating that the conquest of India had begun. So these are commemorative coins. One of this is issued itself in Lisbon with the name escudo, and it has a weight of 9.6 grams, which was a very heavy coin corresponding to the imaginary limit of 1000 reis. Then there were actual coins issued for India, which were basically weighing 3.3 grams. These were called as the pardao, basically a unit of the Vijayanagar hoon, which was then prevalent in South India. So the pardaos of the first ruler Joao III have images of Saint Thomas, sometimes standing, sometimes sitting, but with a short initial ST, which stands for Saint Thomas. Here we come to another concept, that is the reis or the real. This was basically a notional copper coin, which was used to basically give value to all Portuguese currencies after 1670. So, example, there was a copper coin called as the bazaruco. Now, this was basically given a notional value of 2 reis. A silver coin called pataco was given 360 reis, and later when there were silver coins called zerafims, these were given a value of 300 reis. A lower coin called the tanga had a notional value of 60 reis because it had a lower weight. So we see here in the slide the pataco, which basically has 360 reis with the notional value of 360 reis in copper Portuguese currency and with a weight of 23 grams. Then we see the bazaruco. 4 bazarucos basically is equal to 8 reis. And finally, we see some of the other changes in the Portuguese currency at this period, beginning with the images of Saint Thomas and some other Christian saints. They soon shifted to the imagery of Christian heraldry having different forms of crosses. So some were known as the crosses of St. George, some were known as crosses of the Order of Christ, and so on and so forth. These were imprinted on the various forms on the Portuguese coins from the period of 1715. From later periods, we also see images of certain Portuguese rulers beginning in the 18th century. Now we look at the Indo-Portuguese currency exchange before 1871, because in 1871 the Portuguese mints were basically stopped. So 1 rupiah was issued and it had a value of 2 zerafims, which was equal to 10 tangas of silver, and these were then equal to 600 reis. Similarly, 1 zerafim was also equal to 375 bazarucos or 300 reis. 1 silver tanga was equal to 60 reis, and 1 pardao, which was again a smaller silver coin, was equal to 30 reis. 1 reis itself corresponded to 1.5 bazaruco in the bazaars. Bazaruco again comes from the word bazar rokda, a corruption of the Indian word bazar rokda. The closure of the Indian mints of the Portuguese first led to them issuing coins from the British Mint of Bombay, but sooner the mint activities shifted to Lisbon itself. And it is here we see the beginning of machine-made coins, which were then minted in Lisbon itself. We have images of beginning with the image of King Louis I and followed by his son, Dom Manuel. So these are the coins which were of the modern variety. We see some of these images here of the silver rupiah, and also we see some of the lower bazaruco units machine struck in Portugal itself. The currency continued till 1960s, and when the Portuguese power came to an end, but the machinized coinage kept continuing and reforming itself late till 1947. We also see the introduction of Portuguese paper money beginning as early as 1882 in form of 10 and 20 rupiah banknotes. This was issued by a power called Junta da Fazenda Publica. Later in 1883, the general government of Portugal issued coins in the units of 5, 10, 20, 50, 100 and 500 rupees. And also finally in 1906, a new authority took over, the Banco Nacional Ultramarino, which was the overseas bank of the Portuguese, which issued 5, 10, 20 and 50 rupee banknotes for the issue and use in the Portuguese territory. In 1958, the Indo-Portuguese currency became decimal with the introduction of the escudo, which was equal to 100 centavos. In India, these changes affected also the introduction of currency banknotes, which were basically issued in the units of the escudos. 30, 60, 300, 600 and 1000 escudo banknotes were issued. Similarly, coins of escudos and centavos were also issued till 1958. In 1961, all this came to an end when the currency came to an end with the assumption of the Indian authorities of power. Now we are looking at another series and another power, that is the Dutch India coinage. The Dutch came to India in 1609, establishing first its factories at Palikat. And this came under the Dutch East India Company known as the VOC, which itself was established in 1602 in Holland. The Dutch also established factories at Surat, called as Dutch Surat, in 1616. It also established itself at Dutch Bengal, which was centered on Hooghly, and Dutch Malabar, which was based at Cochin, was established in 1661. The Dutch slowly lost power to its English rivals in 1790s. This led to the coming of an end of the 18 Dutch settlements in 1824 itself. Thus, we see a very limited issue of Dutch India coinage, which was just limited till the beginning of the 19th century. The first Dutch coins were basically silver coins, which were issued for Asian territories known as Dutch silver ducatoons. These were basically coins with images of a rider seated on a horse, and they had lower units called as the strevers. Dutch also preferred then to issue coinages more suited to the local conditions. Thus we find the coins of Dutch issued from the mints of Cochin, Palikat, Negapatnam, Masulipatnam and Tuticorin. The Dutch silver ducatoons were basically issued in Holland itself, but we see the coins of later series issued in India itself. These are, the most important of this is a pagoda known as the Palikat Pagoda. It also goes by the name Porto Novo Pagoda. It was issued with the image of Lord Vishnu, and the distinguishing mark of this coin as compared to the other coins of the similar period is that it has a letter J, often called as lazy J on the obverse side, whereas the reverse is as same as other coins of South India at this period. We also see similarly other silver coins and gold coins known as the funams issued with similar images with the J on the reverse and obverse. Coins like these were issued from Cochin Mint. Cochin also issued copper coins known as Rasi. These were basically coins with images of goddess Kali in a stylized form. So you are not able to actually recognize the goddess, but she is in a stylized form. So this is a Dutch India funam with a stylized J, and we see a copper Rasi issued at Cochin. Another important series struck by the Dutch in India was from the Negapatnam Mint. These interestingly came with the Dutch emblem of VOC and with the reverse Tamil legend Nekapatnam. Coins like these are also known from other mints with similar legends in Tamil. We also have another interesting mint coin issued by Palikat Mint. These comes with the Persian legend Sultan Abdullah. possibly referring to the Golconda Sultan Abdullah, and these interestingly again have the VOC bail mark. These were interestingly issued in many various currency denominations, beginning from 2 cash up till 25 cash, and these have an obverse stylized legend which then keeps getting corrupted with the time. We also find thus that the Dutch currency came to an end very early, prematurely, as the areas were taken over by the British and French. Masulipatam was surrendered to the French in 1751. Negapatnam was taken over by the British in 1784. Cochin was occupied in 1814, and finally Palikat in 1824. Thus, the Dutch India coinage never came to its full primacy in India and had to come to a premature end in 1824. Now we go to another series which was again issued from by an Indo-European power, that is the Danish. Coming from Denmark, they came under the power of the Danish East India Company, which was established in 1616. The Danish reached India in 1620 and established themselves on a coastal town of Tharangambadi, which was renamed as Tranquebar. They occupied the town in 1620 with the permission of the local Nayaka, and also established a local fort called Dansborg. They relied on very little minimal trade, hence we see the coinage of the Danish being of very limited variety, restricted to base coins in lead, copper, and very little silver coinage. The Danish India settlement survived till 1845, when its settlements were taken over by the British, simply because it lost the Napoleonic War to the French. If we look at the Danish coinage, its initial coinage was of very small coins called as 1 or 2 cas. Later, higher value cas were issued, but in copper. In later series after 1680, we see the appearance of the denomination with words, and also we see the occurrence of the name of the ruler given in a small initial as C4 and F4 and so on. These basically are names of the Danish rulers, which are usually Christian or Frederick. Apart from the base metal coinage, the Danish also issued silver coins called as fanos. These were first issued in 1683 at the rate of 80 cas in exchange value. Cas values began to be written at the same period on the coins. The fano was renamed as royalen in 1755, and also double royalens known as 2 royalens were issued at this period. Later in 1814, the fano was reappeared, it was renamed, royalen was now called as the fano with no change in the value or the weight of the coins. In 1818, silver coins were temporarily stopped and only copper coins were continued till 1845. So we see the last coin of Tranquebar is a 4 cas coin which was issued in 1845, the year when Tranquebar was sold to the British and integrated into the Madras Presidency. Now we look at another power, the French. The French came to India very late, rather establishing its first company in 1616, but this company failed, so it had to come under the second French India Company in 1668. The first factory was established at Surat, and then there was a factory at Masulipatam, later at Sandthome near Madras, and finally Pondicherry. Pondicherry was taken from the Golconda Sultan, and the village was taken over and a whole new establishment was built from 1673 up till 1693. The French lost Sandthome in 1673 to the Dutch, and it also lost Surat and Masulipatam to the English in 1720. But they soon recovered their territories by acquiring new territories called Yanam in 1723, Mahe in 1725, and Karaikal in 1739 in South India. In 1740s, the French went on an ascendant in India under Dupleix, the French governor, and this led to a major war with the English over Hyderabad and other territories. Unfortunately for the French, they lost to another mastermind, the English leader Robert Clive. Further losses to the French took place with the global reverse, the loss of Napoleon Bonaparte in early 1800s, Thus, by 1815, the French were left only with few territories like Pondicherry, Mahe, Karaikal, Chandarnagar in Bengal, and nominal lodges at Machilipatnam, Surat, and Kozhikode. These were retained by the French till 1954, when French India was assimilated in the Union of India as the territory of Pondicherry. So if we look at the earliest coinage of French, it was a silver coinage called fanons, and these were issued as early as 1700s with the French emblem fleur de lis. Another series was issued in 1720 with the fleur de lis surmounted with a crown. Now if we look at this series, it's very interesting. Very few of these coins survive today. The two coins that I have shown in the slide are actually coins which are with the French Archival Library in Paris, BNF. So the rarity of these coins shows that they were issued in a very limited number. Then in 1750, the French realized that if it has to do trade, it has to come up with coins with Persian legends. At this stage, we see the French issuing a 1/5 of a rupee with Persian legends. Interestingly, these name Pondicherry as full cherry in Persian with the English letter P and the date 1750. We find in 1837 a new series came up of the fanons. These were basically having an Indian crown on the obverse and 5 fleur de lis symbols on the reverse. In the same year, another fanon was issued with a Gallic cock, which was again a French national emblem, and along with the fleur de lis emblem. This was also accompanied by the actual dates on the coins. The next series, which were very important, were the French pagodas, gold coins in the Vijayanagar range. These interestingly had images of Lord Vishnu on the obverse, and the reverse had a mint mark which was the crescent. Interestingly, this coin attracted a lot of opposition from the French church, and sooner than later they were abandoned by the French East India Company in view of the images of the pagan gods. Later we find the French also issued copper coins. The first series again had a fleur de lis emblem with a reverse Puducherry inscribed in Tamil on the reverse. In 1836, the fleur de lis was replaced by the Gallic cock and the date as in the silver coins. Other French mints which were also in operation in South India in the 18th century were Karaikal and Mahe. These again have the names inscribed in Tamil on the reverse. French were also very ambitious. They wanted the coinage to be very popular in trade. Hence they approached the Mughal authorities for the issuage of Mughal style rupees, much like the English who got the permission in 1717. So the French were basically got the permission in 1736 from the Nawab of Arcot after a lot of bribery and gifts to the Nawab of Arcot. Interestingly, the Indo-French rupees have the mint name Arcot, but they have a reverse mint mark of the crescent, much like the pagodas. We thus see the coins of the French in the Mughal style in the names of 4 emperors: Muhammad Shah, Ahmad Shah, Alamgir II, and Shah Alam II. Shah Alam II had a rather long period of coin issues. These were also having a fixed date of 45 and issued much after the emperor died in 1806. And these coins were one of the major coinages of French India for a very long period. The French were also the only fortunate power, the third power, to issue banknotes. Now the earliest banknotes were issued by the Bank of Indochina in 1898. 1 rupee was deemed as equal to 8 French India fanons. Other denominations were 10 rupees called as Dix rupees and 50 rupees called as Cinquante rupees. After the First World War, an interesting series came up of 50 rupee banknotes with the image of Lord Dupleix, the French India hero who actually was responsible for the growth of French India in 1750s. These notes continued to be in circulation in French India till 1954 when they were replaced by the Republic of India currency. Thus we see all these coins and banknotes issued by the French in India and in circulation in Pondicherry and other French India territories. Now, if we look at the entire Indo-European series, we can summarize very interestingly that they are very important relics of the history and culture of the Indo-European powers in India, right from the 16th century when the Portuguese came to India, up till the modern period when they issued banknotes. They are also important as survival of expression of sovereignty of the Europeans. Unfortunately, many Indian powers were unable to recognize these early signs of sovereignty being expressed by the Indo-Europeans. Thus, we see that these could have, if recognized early, have prevented the growth of Indo-Europeans. The Mughals were the first to understand this, but unfortunately, in the later Mughal period, the Indo-European coinages were just on the ascendant. Thank you for viewing this module on Indo-European coinages. For more such information, do visit EPG Pathshala. Thank you.